Welcome to the Legit Football NFL podcast. Brian McFadden here, bringing you Super Wildcard Weekend. We're going to preview all of the games, break them down, do a little bit more of a deep dive, make our game picks to get you ready for the first weekend of playoff football in 2023. This is not 30 minutes of football. It's not live. We're changing things up a little bit. We still have 30 minutes. If you guys like your NFL news, segments, predictions, short and sweet, but this is going to allow us a little bit more free reign, a little bit more room to move around, talk about everything going on in the NFL without the restriction of that 30-minute timer that's always just staring me in the face. We're still going to be having this up on YouTube. We're recording this not live so that our producer Anthony Wehner can actually do some editing work behind the scenes. You'll hear from him from time to time. We're not going to beat around the bush. Let's go ahead and talk about some football. I'm not doing this solo. I do have some friends along for the journey. First, let's bring in Tanner Kern from Cold Hard Football Facts and DraftKings. You guys know him, was doing game picks with me. He knows his player props. He knows the NFL. Tanner, are you ready to talk some playoff football this year?
No, I'm stoked that playoff football's back. It's a different energy.
All you need to do is get in, right? Just get to the dance and anything can happen unless you're starting your third string rookie quarterback, which a couple of these teams could be doing. We will talk about that. Let's also bring in my friend Jeff Schiesser of the year we started a podcast, lifelong Chiefs fan, backdoored his way into the number one seed, but hey, he'll take it. Jeff, are you ready to predict your Chiefs to go all the way?
Hey, that's not what we're doing today, Brian.
That
but
is not.
I am. I'd be happy to do that prediction for you if you'd like. But no, I'm just excited. Like Tanner said, different energy. It's exciting. We're here. I think this is what you look forward to all season. So excited to talk about it.
So Tanner is a Brady fan, so I guess we can put you in the Bucs category. So your team's in. You're obviously a Chiefs fan. They're not playing this week, but the Chiefs are in. Somehow with Skylar Thompson, the Dolphins are in. Everybody but Anthony behind the scenes is happy to be talking playoff football. So let's go ahead and dive in. I want to go through all the games in order. So we're going to start with the Saturday game tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. San Francisco 49ers hosting the Seattle Seahawks 2 seed versus 7 seed. This is the third time these teams will have played since they are division foes. Right now, a 10-point spread. One of the things I want to talk about is I'm in the Bay Area. I'm 20 minutes from Levi Stadium. The weather has been atrocious here. Should make for an interesting matchup between these two teams. Maybe it levels the playing field. Maybe it doesn't. Last two times these teams have played, San Fran has won 48-20 in combined. So Tanner, I want to start with you first. Just give me some high-level thoughts on this game. And I think with a lot of these games that are pretty clear-cut, let's try to map out a path for the underdog to win. What would need to happen for Geno Smith and the Seahawks to actually win this game?
I mean, a lot of mistakes from the 49ers. That's the only thing I could think of. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in the season. It's hard to cover against a team 3 times in the season. But when you look at this game, nothing really draws me to Seattle in any way, especially with the rain coming in now. I think that actually favors San Francisco a little more. They play great defense. The one way Seattle needs to hang in this game is by throwing the football. And if you look at Geno Smith splits from the second half of the season to the first half of the season, it's a totally different quarterback. So, I mean, the path for them to win this football game is by San Francisco messing up a lot and then maybe Brock Purdy showing signs that he's a rookie, but he hasn't done that yet this season.
There is like 1 or 2 throws a game Purdy makes where it's like, he got a little lucky. They actually had one against the Seahawks last time. I think it was Quandre Diggs who dropped what would have been an easy interception. He doesn't give you many of those, but it does happen. As you mentioned, Tanner, he is a rookie. Anything else stand out to you, Jeff, as far as like, hey, Seattle might have a chance, or no, they're just going to get curb stomped here by the Niners?
It sure feels like it's going to be a few
of those.
one.
There's a few of those this week. Let's be real.
Yeah, but I mean, Brock Purdy. It is. I mean, we're enough games in now. You can't even say it's a 1 or 2 game sample size. I mean, he's shown that he can at least be serviceable at worst, and I think they're going to need him to do worse than serviceable for the Seahawks to have a chance. But I mean, 49ers, they're allowing 16 points per game on the season. I don't see a world in which it doesn't feel very close at all. I mean, any given Sunday, but I don't think it's going to be this weekend. So I guess any given Saturday.
Yeah, so I mentioned the weather off the bat. So I have the actual notes I looked up from weather.com for Santa Clara for this time tomorrow. potential for flooding rains, high of 59. Winds 10 to 20 miles per hour, chance of rain 100%, maybe 1 inch. That might not sound like a big deal in general, but in the Bay Area, that's a big deal. When you've got years of drought, that dry weather, that just the water just sits on top, right? It makes for horrible conditions. We saw week 1, the Niners, granted it was Trey Lance, it was a whole different ball game, but they lost to the Chicago Bears. Is there an equalizer there, Tanner? You mentioned you think it actually favors the 49ers. Give me a little more insight on that.
So I think they're going to be able to run the ball behind Christian McCaffrey enough. And a lot of the throws Brock Purdy's been doing, it's been short completions over the middle to Christian McCaffrey, a lot of stuff there with Debo. They have so many playmakers that they can get the ball to in space where I think it doesn't really affect them too much. And they're just 10 times better, too. That's what it comes down to. I mean, this 49ers team's playing that aggressive, and they want to hurt you on defense, which it's extremely fun to watch the way they play defense right now. So I can't see anything neutralizing this game. You could put this game in Seattle, it still doesn't really change my mind. I mean, San Francisco has been a machine against the spread. I think they finished 8-1 against the spread in their final 9 games, where Seattle was the complete opposite. They have covered 1 time in their final 8 or 9 in that range. It's just, I like the over the best. That's my favorite play in this game because, again, it is a 10-point spread in the postseason. But still, it's if I had to pick a side, I'm taking San Francisco with points.
I think I just wanted to say, like, another thing you mentioned, just the back half of the season for the Seahawks. And I mean, they won 3 of their last 11 games. And I think really how you finish the season is so important in the playoffs. And they've gone cold. There's a couple other teams that might have gone a little cold too. We'll get to those later. But I think the momentum and everything has to be with the 49ers this week.
There's one advantage. You actually hinted at this, Tanner. Really, the only advantage I can find that Seattle has is their wide receivers versus the San Francisco DBs. Now, Charvarius Ward actually played very physical with DK Metcalf in their last game, and it was San Francisco was in control the whole game, but at least they had a shot in Seattle. But Diamador Lenoir is the weak spot on the other side. Teams have been able to exploit him. Tyler Lockett is healthy. No major injuries on either side of the ball. Jeff, is there a world where Geno can cook and actually make that the difference here? Once again, assuming the weather isn't an impediment.
I mean, to me, the 49ers, they're gonna bring pressure. I mean, and I think we saw the stat across the bottom. I mean, leading the league in turnover differential. I mean, it's not looking good for Seattle.
Anthony bringing the stats at the bottom. He also mentioned that the Niners lead the NFL in starting field position. So that's clearly a testament to their defense, giving their offense short fields and turnover differential. A rookie quarterback who has played so much better than he's not Patrick Mahomes, but he doesn't need to be. He just needs to run that Shanahan offense and to be running it very well. I don't think there's any suspense here, so let's just go around. Let's make our picks. Tanner, we'll start with you. Winner, spread, whatever you want to throw out there.
Winner, so spread. I mean, unless you got $1 million, not million, but I saw some big bets. I saw someone put like it was a crazy figure. It was close to like $800,000 on Caesars on an alternate spread on the Niners at plus 4.5 to win like $8,000. It was something crazy like that. But I will go with the over 42. I think that's my favorite play in this game, even despite the rain. I still really like it. And then I would take San Francisco with the points as my second.
What about you, Jeff? You want to make a game pick in this game? Do you think Seattle keeps it close, or is this like Niners just rolling into division weekend?
Yeah, I'll just make the game picks. I think it's there's 49ers, one of the best teams in the NFL. They're not gonna have a challenge this week.
Hottest team, 10 straight victories, number 1 team in DVOA by far. And I don't really see an opportunity. I think the weather, I agree with you, Tanner, that it actually favors San Francisco because the one advantage Seattle has is that passing attack. If that's neutralized, as exciting as Kenneth Walker has been, the run offense has not been very efficient for Seattle. It's been like he'll run off a 60-yard run and then he'll have 3.2 yards per carry for the rest of the way. And the Niners have one of the best run defenses. Everything says 49ers. I'm also picking San Francisco. Let's not belittle the point. Let's move on to the next game. A much more exciting matchup. Tanner, we've talked about the Jags a lot when we've had you on. You've been on Jacksonville since the beginning when they kept losing, and it looks like they've finally backed up your belief in them. Number 4 seed Jacksonville, a home game because they won the division against number 5 Chargers, Jacksonville. By the way, all of these teams this weekend have played each other this year. There are no unique matchups. Everybody's played each other at least once. The Jaguars won 38-10 in Week 4. It was a long time ago. Herbert had the rib issue. But one of the big things here is the Chargers played all their starters almost the entire game in a meaningless Week 18 against the Broncos. Mike Williams was ruled out today. Williams is not playing. This is a different team without him in there. Jeff, we'll start with you on this. This is one of the most even matchups. Where do you see the advantages and disadvantages for each team?
I think, well, you mentioned one of the big disadvantages, Chargers playing starters in the final week of the season, somewhat senselessly getting people hurt, Williams being finally ruled out. I mean, that hurts a lot. I mean, now Keenan Allen being back in the mix, he's definitely been playing well. But for me, I agree, Tanner. I think the Jaguars are a lot better, especially if you consider how they've played again in the back half of the season. They've shown themselves to be a legitimate force. And I think for me, two big things for the Jaguars that really, and I, not to spoil anything here, but I think I'm leaning toward them is because Trevor Lawrence in the back half of this season has played some very impressive football. I mean, some of the passes that he has made in big moments have been very impressive. And then just the complete culture shift that Doug Peterson has put in this locker room. I mean, of course, the juxtaposition with Urban Meyer, anybody's going to look good. But, I mean, he knows how to win postseason football. And I think if the Jaguars, they have a lot of, Trevor Lawrence getting some more weapons this year and just developing as a quarterback, I think we're going to see what he's capable of here in the playoffs. And I'm excited to see it.
And not having a coach that kicks your kicker and, dances with women in bars while your team leaves.
The bar is low.
That might help. That might help. But it's nice to have Doug Peterson specifically and his Super Bowl pedigree. Anthony scrolled across the bottom a stat that I actually had in my notes, so I'm glad you brought up. Interestingly, the Jags and the Chargers are first and second in the NFL in dropped passes. Jacksonville with 41, Chargers with 40. And this is actually crucial, there's only been 3 drop passes from Keenan Allen and Mike Williams combined, which means the majority of those drop passes actually came. Austin Eckler dropped a fair few, Gerald Everett, Josh Palmer, some of those backup DeAndre Carter. Without Mike Williams, that one dependable receiver, the one who Herbert seems to be more comfortable throwing the ball down the field. Another fun fact, Herbert is actually in the bottom 5 in the NFL in average depth of target. He's not throwing the ball down the field except when Mike Williams is in. Tanner, how big of a loss is Mike Williams to the Chargers' chance here, playing the Jags on the road?
I mean, it's huge. I think, too, with Brandon Staley, like his decision to play those guys last week is going to cost him his job. Like, he will be automatically fired. And some of the decisions he made this year, honestly. But I actually really like the Chargers in this game. Despite everything, I think this is their game to win. The one area that Jacksonville scares me is their secondary. So even though a guy like Mike Williams isn't going to play, they're still going to have chances down the field. The area where Jacksonville's been really good this year is red zone defense, tightening up. Between the 20s, they don't play that efficient defense, and then their bendability is very good. So if the Chargers can find a way to put the ball in the end zone when they get those opportunities, I think they're going to be in good shape in this game. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be sensational. I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch. But if I had to give a pick, I would go with Chargers money line in this one. And that's going against the cold hard football facts. That's going against everything. I'm calculating just the fact that I think this is just a bad matchup for the Jaguars. You look who they beat down the stretch. They really didn't beat a really good air raid team besides the Cowboys with Dak Prescott, who leads the league in interceptions and missed 5 games. So, that'd be my pick. Chargers money line all the way.
If you're just listening to this on podcast, by the way, I recommend watching the YouTube version. Anthony is putting some gem nuggets at the bottom here. This is the first time the Chargers have been favored in a home playoff game since, 2010? This is also the first time the Jaguars and Chargers have ever played in the playoffs. I mean, the Jaguars have only been to the playoffs 5 or 6 times, but yeah, interesting nugget. Here's why I'm leaning Jacksonville in this. And I think if Mike Williams is in the game, I'd feel different, but there's been such a difference in the way this offense operates. I'm not a fan of Joe Lombardi, offensive coordinator. I think they're winning because they have an extremely talented roster. I think the Chargers roster is more talented. Just throwing that out there. But huge coaching advantage with Peterson. I'm with you, Tanner. I think there's a very good chance that Staley gets fired if he loses this game. I don't care that he made the playoffs. You've got Peyton out there who has specifically leaked that the Chargers is a destination he'd be interested in, and Staley has just really hasn't given us any reason to think that he could be the leader of this team. Great DC, but his time with the Rams has not been a great head coach, and I think if he loses this against a team that had 3 wins last year, yeah, it's not looking good for him. The Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence have been very good against man defense, and the Chargers have been playing a lot of man lately. They started off more of a zone kind of cover 2 shell team because that's the defense Staley tends to like to run. They started to play a little bit more man, but Jacksonville's been very good about that. If they can disguise coverages, Lawrence, that's kind of one of his weaknesses is disguise coverages. He's not as efficient on that. But the Chargers still have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. You've got Travis Etienne. I just like these advantages. Without Mike Williams, I think the depth of target changes. I don't think Herbert's going to make any big mistakes. I don't think they're going to do enough to keep up with Jacksonville. So I'm going to pick the Jags. Jeff, I'm assuming that's your official pick. You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, I do think this is probably one of the closest games of the weekend. But yeah, I lean Jags on this.
Okay. Trevor Lawrence has never lost a game, NFL, college, or high school on a Saturday. See, that's what I mean. I'm going to miss some of these nuggets. I'm going to miss it. Anthony coming with the stats. I absolutely love it. Let's jump into the Sunday games. As a Dolphins fan, I'm fine if we spend about 30 seconds on this game. I do not need a deep dive because let's be real. I'm going to straight up say it. I have no faith. We can talk about a path, but that path is slim to none. Number 2, Buffalo Bills hosting the number 7 Miami Dolphins got in with an 11-6 victory over the Jets with Skylar Thompson. They won despite themselves. Tua started, so the Dolphins and Bills split the series 1-1. They knocked the Bills off in week 3 earlier this season, but Tua started that game. And Tua started the game where they almost won in Buffalo a few weeks ago. Tua's not starting this game. It's not even looking like Teddy's finger's going to be ready. So we got Skylar Thompson, who has not been good at all, other than the fact that he's not turning the ball over, just hasn't run this offense very well. Miami has only won 1 game all season without Tua. That was the 11-6 victory, if you can call it that, in Week 18. Tanner, what, if any, has to happen for the Dolphins to actually pull off this? By the way, the biggest, I believe it's 13 points right now, the biggest spread of all the games this weekend.
Well, they need to play great on defense. That's the one way they can stay in this game is if they do that, and that has not been a strong suit for them this season. I mean, they're terrible against the pass. They're pretty bad against the run as well. So there's, again, not a lot they can do to stay in this football game. With that being said, it's a divisional game, and 13.5 points is a lot, and you never know. The Bills might have just expended all their energy last week beating the Patriots with the kick return touchdowns. I think DeMar Hamlin's going to be at the game, which probably doesn't help.
We're losing by 30.
He might put 70 points up on you guys, but you never know. So I think the way they win is by playing great defense and hope for some Josh Allen mistakes. He does throw a lot of red zone interceptions. That's one area where you can take advantage of some things. But yeah, I think it would be a big success just to cover the spread in this one.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I feel bad, Brian. I'm not creative enough to even come up with the way this works out. Buffalo scored more than 32 points in the last 3 games. I don't see a world in which the Dolphins even sniff that. And I don't again, having the motivation trump card of Hamlin being, I mean, if he is at the game or not, this Bills team has come together. I mean, they've come together like nothing else. And so even if they do have a rough, half after, maybe an unfortunate Josh Allen pick in the red zone, they're going to be able to turn that thing around. In my opinion, there's no way that the Bills, again, as one of the best teams in the NFL, are going to score, somewhere in the 10 to 12 range that they would need to lose this game. It just doesn't seem possible.
Completely agree. Because even if you do get a defensive score, how is that going to be enough to keep you? You'd have to hope for like a 24-point. That's good. If we can hold the Bills to 21, 24 points, that's a great performance for the Miami defense. In what world is Skylar Thompson in the offense going to score more than that? So we don't need to belabor the point. The run game is another advantage. The Dolphins actually were able to run the ball really well in their last matchup, but Raheem Mostert is looking to miss this game with a broken finger. So Jeff Wilson, Salvin Ahmed, we're missing. Only one offensive lineman has been starting for the Dolphins. Like, come on! Like, I love that they're in the playoffs, but I have no illusions. It's going to be. Hopefully, they put us out of our misery early, and I don't have to stress about it. So I'm picking Bills. we don't need to beat around the bush. You guys are picking Bills too. Okay.
Yeah.
I know that Tanner's got about 10 more minutes left. Let's see to get through as many of these games as we can. Another one of the more exciting matchups. So this is the second matchup of Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. It is the number 3 Minnesota Vikings hosting the number 6 New York Giants. These teams also, like everyone else, played previously this season. It was not that long ago in Week 16. Minnesota needed a 61-yard field goal to beat the Giants. It did take place in Minnesota, 27-24. Jeff, we'll start with you on this one. This is one of the matchups I'm most interested in. I don't think either of these teams has a chance at the Super Bowl, but at least this matchup should be a good one.
I think that's a great way to put it. I don't think either one of these teams are nearly good enough, but they're just interesting enough to make for a good game this weekend. The Giants have a couple people on defense coming back. They have their safety McKinney and corner Jackson back in the game, and that's huge because the path forward for them, they need to be able to stop Jefferson and the air attack from the Vikings. I've definitely been on the bandwagon that the Vikings are a fraud. Their whole season has just been lucky game after lucky game. But at the end of the day,
11 times historically.
Yes. Right. And even setting records along the way for doing it in the most spectacular fashion. For me, I don't see the Giants being good enough to put this game out of reach. And if anything, the Vikings have going for them, it is the confidence that they can come back and win. So I think even if the Giants do manage to hop out to a lead and try to ride that out, I still feel like the Vikings won't have any quit in them because for better or worse, they've been proven time and time again that they have a shot no matter what. So even though I would like to pick the Giants at a game like this, I think it is. I would still lean Vikings, even though they're not nearly as good as the record might suggest.
I have some data I want to throw at you, but I want to hear from Tanner first because I dug into this game a lot trying to pick a winner. Tanner, what do you see as the keys to this matchup?
The Vikings aren't a good football team. That's kind of the bottom line.
There you go. Hashtag analysis. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I got to be, you got to be a little fair with that statement. Like they're the worst football team with a good record, right? Like, are they better than the Giants? Probably. Are they better than the Dolphins this weekend? Probably, yeah. But like their record does not indicate how good they are when you look at them statistically. I mean, the only thing that they really do decent is run the football. They got a top 5 offensive rushing unit, but defensively, and then their quarterback, it's not great. Quarterback, average there, but defensively they do not get the job done. I think that's going to open up the door for Daniel Jones a little bit. I think his presence this weekend is going to be huge. I mean, they can run the ball all they want, but to beat Minnesota, you got to put up points and you got to have success throwing the ball downfield, which they did a little bit last time out against Minnesota. Also working him into the run game with some read option stuff is going to be big for them, I think. I like the Giants at +3, possibly money line. I think 3, and I'll buy up a half a point here just to be safe, because I think it does come down to a field goal.
Yeah, I think it's clear. I mean, so here's some of the data. We mentioned earlier that the Vikings are crazy lucky in these close games. 11-0. 11 one-score victories. That has never been done in the history of the NFL. Guess who's second in one-score victories this year?
Giants.
New York Giants, 8-4-1. So the one thing the Vikings have, which is pulling out these last-second victories, they're playing a team that actually does the same exact thing. But here's some key injuries. The Vikings are going to be without right tackle Brian O'Neill and maybe without center Garrett Bradbury. Even if he does play, he's not going to be at 100%. Giants getting Adoree Jackson back is huge. The last time these two teams played, it was Fabian Moreau who had to cover Jefferson, and Jefferson absolutely toasted him. Not that Adoree Jackson can stop Jefferson, but he's certainly better than Moreau. That points more towards the Giants. And Cousins, one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL against the blitz. Guess who blitzes more than anybody in the NFL by far? Wink Martindale and the New York Giants at 42%. The last 2 times these teams played, that was closer to 50%. They were blitzing the crap out of Cousins. And finally, and Jeff, this is really, I'm trying to change your mind here. So the Vikings, since week 13, 28th in overall DVOA. That's defense adjusted value over average. So this metric says they are the 28th worst team in the NFL since week 13. 20th in offense, 27th in defense, 30th in rush offense. That's important because the Giants, 13th overall in DVOA since week 13, 5th offense, 26th defense. Their defense has not been good, but it's specifically the rush defense that has been bad. So the one place you can really attack the Giants is the run game, but the Vikings are 30th in run offense. So if there's one path to victory for the Vikings, it's that Justin Jefferson is the greatest wide receiver right now in the NFL, and he can single-handedly win you the game. He did it against the Bills, but I just like how this game matches up. I think Cousins is going to get harassed. I think that they're very, very equal, and then comes down to coaching. I trust Dable a little bit more, and that whole staff. I like Kevin O'Connell's done. I don't know the defensive coordinator's name for the Vikings, but he has clearly not done a great job. So I'm going to go with the Giants pulling off the upset. I agree with Tanner. I think it's going to be a field goal or less. It's going to come down to who has the ball last, but I'm going to pick the Giants. Jeff, what's your official pick?
My official pick is going to just stick with the Vikings, and here's why. I do think it's going to be super close. I don't imagine this is not going to be a one-possession game with less than 5 minutes to play. So it obviously could go either way in my eyes. But seeing the number of times where, against all odds, the Vikings managed to, despite being a very, very mediocre team at best, or perhaps the 28th best team, they seem to be able to figure it out at the very end of games. So I think but again, I acknowledge it definitely, it's going to be a close game going down to the wire.
Tanner, I know we only got a couple minutes left, so why don't we get your picks and maybe really quick insight on Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Tampa Bay, Dallas, and then we'll let Anthony come in and finish out those two games with me and Jeff here.
Yeah, awesome. So I like Baltimore at plus 9.5 right now. I think it's a fair play. I'm not saying
no Lamar. Lamar officially ruled out.
No Lamar. Yep, it's gonna be Hundley. I'm not saying that Joe Burrow doesn't have a great day through the air. I think he does. I still think it's hard to beat a team twice, no matter if backups were playing last week or not. It's hard to play great against the same team 2 weeks in a row. And I think this Ravens team defensively is going to make some schematic changes and have the ability to keep it somewhat close. It's a division game in the postseason. I got to lean on that. And then Monday Night Football, Buccaneers all the way. Buccaneers plus 2.5, plus 3, whatever you can get it at money line. Dak Prescott, he's missed 5 games this season. He still leads the league in interceptions. He's had 7 straight games with interception. He's had 4 pick sixes this year. I trust Tom Brady in this spot in January. This is where he wants to be. And then also when you look at that game as well, the Buccaneers can't play from behind. They got to put the pressure on Dallas. But again, they got nothing to lose in this one either. They're the underdog at home. They really haven't had a great season. House money. Yeah, they're playing with house money, in my opinion. Yeah. And they got the best playoff quarterback of all time. So.
Agreed. Thank you so much, Tanner, for coming on. Always a pleasure to have you. Make sure to check out Cold Hard Football Facts and Tanner Kern all across social. He puts out some amazing content specifically around sports betting. Must follow. Tanner, thanks for coming on. You know we'll have you on again in the future.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, Anthony, back from behind the scenes. Come and join us whenever you can. Yeah, no rush. There you go. Although this is not live, so maybe you can edit out that little awkwardness out. Okay, so I want to go in deep. You're going to keep pulling these nuggets up, Anthony, even though you're up front now. First of all, let's get it on the podcast, on record. You got your Lions gear. How are you feeling as a Lions fan with everything that went down?
Honestly, amazing. Because in the preseason, I didn't even expect to go over 500. So to beat the Packers in eliminating playoffs and then go over 500 at 9-8, Dan Campbell's second season as the head coach with Aiden Hutchinson being drafted first, it was incredible to see. They're a real team now, and they've proven that to everybody. And now it's like, I think they're going to be the talk of the offseason. Going into next season, it's going to be the Detroit Lions, and I'm excited to see what next year's going to be like. I think if we went to playoffs this year, it might be too quick. It might have been too fast. The pressure would have just hit. Everything would have happened too fast. Everyone would have got confused. We're in the wild card anyway. It wasn't even worth it. So let's see the playoffs next year, and let's go. I mean, let's go over 500. Let's go 800. Let's go 10-7. I mean, because I could see it.
So where do you think that Detroit? I've got this list. I've been talking about teams in DVOA since week 13. Where would you guess overall DVOA Detroit is from week 13 to week 18?
13 to 18.
Yeah, last 6 weeks of the season.
Eighth place.
Third.
That's
you didn't let me guess, Brian, but I wasn't going to guess third. I can tell you that.
No, me either.
That's impressive. Wow.
That's beautiful.
Guess who they're right on above. This will be easy for you, Jeff.
I'm gonna guess the Chiefs.
Kansas City Chiefs at 4.
Yay!
There you go. We're gonna end the show. The Lions are better than the Chiefs for the last
Yeah, go
6
ahead.
weeks.
Hold
Okay,
me out
that's
too.
all.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead. I thought that would make you feel good, Anthony. Let's dive into a little bit deeper. Cincinnati Bengals playing the Ravens for the third time, but the second time in 2 weeks. These teams just played. We just witnessed this. It was not an exciting game the first time. I don't expect it to be an exciting game this time. At least there's no coin toss to determine who gets to play at home, although that was a funny celebration by Joe Mixon last week. Split the series 1-1. The Baltimore did beat Cincinnati earlier in the season, but as we mentioned, the Bengals won 27-16 in Week 18. No Lamar Jackson. That is probably the most important stat. There's some other things to go over, but I'll start with that. Even Tyler Huntley had not been practicing. He finally returned to practice yesterday, so that at least says it's a little bit better of a shot than rolling Anthony Brown out there. Anthony, you just popped in, so I will let you start with this one. What are your thoughts on Bengals Ravens version 3?
Yeah, I think even with Lamar Jackson, the Bengals are sort of their kryptonite. And I know they did beat them earlier, but the Bengals weren't the team that they are now. They kind of got back up, and they've been doing very well in the last half of the season. And with Tyler Huntley just, having to fill that missing spot at quarterback, I don't think he's going to be able to pass over the Bengals defense. Probably won't even be able to scramble the Bengals defense either. They're going to find a way to shut him down. They're going to barely get any points out. The Bengals are going to outscore them, and it's Bengals victory because if Lamar Jackson was playing, it might have been close. I still think Cincinnati would have won, but it would have been closer. I don't think this game's going to be close, and that's because Tyler Huntley's under center.
Jeff, once again, we're trying to roll out the whatever possible path for these underdogs, and there's so many games like this. We talked about the Dolphins rolling out a third stringer. We talked about the Seahawks having lost 48-20 in 2 matchups against San Francisco. What is the path? Let's assume Tyler Huntley is starting for the Ravens to pull off the upset here against a division foe that they know well.
I think so. That to me is the only way that any of this makes any amount of sense, is that they just played each other. It's a divisional game that happened 1 week after the end of the season. In those games, crazy things happen. Other than just that pure fact, I don't see any way that this is even remotely close. The Bengals are one of the best teams in the NFL. They are, the offensive weapons that they have, if you just compare the offenses, there's one team's going to score a lot of points and one team likely is not. And at the end of the day, the numbers on the scoreboard are the thing that matters. The Bengals haven't lost since Halloween. They are a very, very good football team. It's not a fluke that they went to the Super Bowl. They have proven that they don't choke in the playoffs. They played some very good football last year, and they're a better team this year. I think they prove that it was no fluke that they went to the big game last year. So for me, it could happen because there are crazy divisional things that happen all the time, and playing back to back against a team that's always a weird deal. So we'll see, but if everything plays out the way that it does on paper, I don't see a path.
Yeah, so here's some of the data I dug up to try to find this path, and it's not an easy path to find. So the Ravens, this was actually a nugget in, I think it was today's Legit Football, today or yesterday. Ravens are averaging 12.5 points per game since Lamar doesn't start. 12.5 points a game. You couldn't beat the Titans, who lost 7 in a row and were like a clown show for the end of the season, scoring 12.5 points per game, and 22 points with. But they have been one of the best defenses in the NFL since they acquired Roquan Smith. He is a top 4 run defense since week 13. He has also been great in coverage. One of the reasons they lost by 11, but it wasn't a blowout. Anthony Brown had 3 turnovers last week, is because this defense actually match up well against all those weapons you mentioned, Jeff. Very physical corners, fully healthy. You got Marcus Peters. You've got Marlon Humphreys on the other side. They really like to press these receivers, kind of throw off the timing. Burrow is he's great at everything, but he really likes to be a timing quarterback if he can, like Brady. Yeah. So you can at least keep them contained. I just like the Dolphins, it doesn't matter. You're not going to score enough points, but if there's one, maybe you keep them contained enough that you get. I think they at least could be close enough that if you do get a defensive score or a special team score, maybe that makes a difference. I don't think that matters for the Dolphins. With the Ravens, maybe there's an outside chance. Bengals are also missing 2 starting offensive linemen, right tackle Lyle Collins and right guard Alex Kappa. Ravens haven't had a great pass rush, but they do like to blitz. So if you can get pressure on Burrow's right side, force him to get out of the pocket and maybe make a mistake, which doesn't happen often, but it's like just introducing a little bit of chaos. That's the path. Do I think it'll happen? Absolutely not. I'm picking the Bengals to win this comfortably at home. Anthony, I don't know if you made an official pick.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Bengals for this one.
Yeah.
And cover the spread as well.
I think you lined out a pretty good path, though, Brian, if there is a path. And that is, like, if for whatever reason the Bengals start out slow, they go into halftime even or near even, and then there's a fluky play in the third quarter where, maybe Burrow messes up, gets sacked, fumbles, and now the Ravens have a very short field, go and score a touchdown and go up. And then they have a good enough defense to at least make it interesting. Even if that sort of thing were to happen, I still feel like the Bengals are too good of a team to not come back and win that game. But that's the sort of chaos that a divisional opponent that you just played, that sort of thing could happen. But I
wish Lamar was playing in this.
It would be a lot more fun.
That's the factor. Probably would still pick Cincinnati, but man, it would be much more. It would be a lot more.
It would be a fun game to watch for sure.
So let's pick. There is a Monday night game. This is super wild card weekend, guys, because apparently everything's got to be bumped up a level. So super wild card weekend. The number 4 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We had Tanner briefly mention this game when he made his picks before he had to hop off. Hosting with an 8-9 record. Because they won the division, that mess in the NFC South. The number 5 Dallas Cowboys, who ended their season getting beat by 20 by Sam freaking Howell making his first NFL start. And Dak playing certainly his worst game of the season, maybe one of the worst of his career. The Bucs did win 19-3. The one time these teams played, it was all the way back in Week 1, back when we all had hope. You still have hope, Jeff, but I had hope, and Anthony had hope, and Week 1, 19-3. Dak got injured in that game, and then we had the Cooper Rush period of time for the Cowboys. So I don't really put a lot into that, but I like how this game matches up for the Bucs. Jeff, I'll let you start with this one.
This is the game I had the hardest time really thinking through how this ends up playing out. And here's what I'll say. Taking their work of the season as a whole, Dallas is the better team. They can run the ball well. But for me, the thing that really sticks with me is, one, how they ended this season for inexplicably, like you said, Dak playing his worst game of the season, but also how they ended last postseason. Dak single-handedly taking the ball up the middle to run out the clock against the 49ers.
Don't remind me. That was dreadful.
And I'm really starting to have questions about him as a quarterback, and is he going to be somebody that the Cowboys can win with? Because they need somebody who can step up and make a play. And I had a real hard time with this. And also on the other side of the field, you have Mr. Tom Brady, who has a history of doing the opposite of that his entire career. And so even though I do think Dallas is the better team, I would, at the end of the day, this is a playoff game and loser goes home. And I don't know. I was really torn on this. Before I talk about any more, I'd be happy to hear what you all think and maybe give a couple other thoughts at the end here.
I love the stat that you just put up, Anthony. Cowboys haven't won a road playoff game since 1993. Aikman versus Steve Young. What? That is crazy. I didn't know that. I didn't know it was that bad. Anthony, your thoughts, and then I'll come and give some data, and we'll let Jeff make up his mind. He hasn't landed in the spot yet.
My first thought is Tom Brady in the playoffs and how successful he's been in his entire career. And it seems like they figured out how to work their offense against that Panthers team when they with that second half comeback with Mike Evans. And if they can just figure out how to work that offense against any secondary, then I think they have a chance to beat Dallas, just because Dallas is a hit or miss for me. I see Dak Prescott throwing interceptions at 7 straight games. In 9 of his last 10 games, he's thrown at least 1 interception. And in the playoffs, you can't throw interceptions. You can't do that. That's how you lose. And especially if you're against Tom Brady, if there's an interception at the end of the game, Brady will find a way to score and beat the Cowboys. I do have the Buccaneers winning this, and that's why, because of Tom Brady in the playoffs, better than Dak Prescott in the playoffs.
So I was trying to dive into the DVOA and some of the advanced metrics to try to find any clear advantage, and I couldn't for either team. Dallas, 25th in pass defense DVOA since week 13, which is something maybe people don't really realize. They were so good early in the season, mainly because of their pass rush, but they're one of the worst teams in pass defense since week 13. But the Bucks are 17th in pass offense. That's not a huge difference. Bucks 30th in pass D since week 13. Cowboys 14th in pass offense, and that's not including the turnovers. So it's like I couldn't find an actual advantage. So then let's look at the quarterbacks right at the end of the day. We'll give a slight edge to the Bucks for having home field advantage. But let's start with Dak. Tanner already mentioned this. 15 interceptions on the year. That's tied for first in the NFL. He didn't play 5 games. Still tied for first interceptions. 3.8% interception percentage. That is the worst in the entire NFL. That means 4% of all of his passes ends in an interception. And you put the stat up earlier, Anthony, but I also have this here. Dak has thrown at least 1 interception in 7 straight games in 9 of his last 10. This guy is going to give you the football at this point. He hasn't always been that bad. I've seen him play at an elite level multiple times in his career. That's not now. Throw in the other side. Brady has 25 touchdowns on the year. 12 of them in quarters 1 through 3. 13 in the fourth quarter. 7 in the last 4 minutes when trailing.
Wow.
That's the factor. That's it. I don't see an opportunity with the way these teams are playing that the Dallas is going to be way ahead. I think the game will be close. And who am I going to trust in the fourth quarter at home on Monday night, than the guy who has 7 rings, the greatest of all time, and even this season, a season in which the Bucs have been flat out bad on all aspects of the game, offense, defense, coaching, doesn't matter. But the fourth quarter still belongs to Brady. That's why I'm going with Tampa Bay to win this game and probably get trounced with whoever they play in the division round.
I was about to say the exact same thing. The Eagles and 49ers are going to absolutely wreck them next week, so it doesn't hardly matter. But yes.
But it'll be a nice, at least Brady gets one last playoff victory before he either goes to play for Las Vegas or retires. I don't know. Yeah. All right, Jeff, well, now we got to hear from you. We've made our picks. We've given you our data.
I think just the difference between quarterbacks here, that to me feels, I mean, that was my initial instinct of I can't trust Dak to put a game away, and I can't trust Tom Brady to not. like you said there, you said 7 touchdowns in the last half of the fourth quarter, something like that. That's not surprising at all. I mean, that's how he's played his entire career. Doesn't matter what's happened the entire rest of the game. If it's close, and I think there's no reason to think it won't be. If I'm going to flip a coin, I'm gonna take that coin to the Tom Brady side. So I'm calling Tom Brady.
Yet another Anthony. You are absolutely crushing it with the Nugs today. Brady has 35 playoff wins. Brady himself, individual, 35 playoff wins since 2000. The Dallas Cowboys have 3.
Ouch.
I mean, everything points to this game. There is a path for the Cowboys to winning. They are a better team, Jeff. I completely agree. They are a better roster when they're at their best, and the Bucs are at their best this season. The Cowboys are far and away a better team. Micah Parsons can win this game by himself. Let's put that out there. We haven't mentioned him yet. Yeah. That guy is an absolute game wrecker. He is a Lawrence Taylor generational type of defensive talent who can single-handedly change the outcome of a game. So if you're a Cowboys fans out there, we're not saying Cowboys don't have a chance. We're saying we think it'll be close, and at the end of the day, even you Cowboys fans, do you really believe in Dak Prescott over Tom Brady? So that's why we're going with that. I want to close this out talking about coaches, because I think it was Tanner who mentioned something about Brandon Staley losing and getting fired. But here, what about Mike McCarthy? If McCarthy loses this game after Dallas had a chance at the number 1 seed in Week 18. That's how good this season was for Dallas. I picked the Cowboys to miss the playoffs. They made it, so they overachieved in my mind. But then they stumble in the worst way and then lose to a team that was 8-9 in the first round of the playoffs. What are the odds that we think McCarthy's gone?
Personally, I feel like, given typical Cowboys...
This is Jerry Jones here. Yeah,
I know.
Keep Jerry Jones in mind.
he should be, and he won't be. In my opinion,
Really? Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. Everything that I've ever thought coaching wise for the Cowboys, I mean, how long was Jason Garrett with the Cowboys for? Off the top, do you know, or even?
It was like 6 or 7 seasons. It was longer than
like
it should have been.
3 or 4 seasons longer than it should have been, and so that's why. I mean,
But
that's the
but,
prior precedent.
but there's a couple different data points here. First of all, who knows how much longer Jerry has? Let's just be real. Second, there was no Sean Payton waiting in the wings when Jason Garrett was being mediocre for all those years. Third, this Cowboys team was so good at one point. They were one of the best teams in the NFL, and they've completely falling off. That has to be fresh in Jerry's head. Anthony, do you have a prediction or at least a percentage of the chance that you think McCarthy keeps his job?
I want to say maybe like 40-60 chance. Like if they win this game against the Buccaneers, his job's safe.
Yeah. They have to win a playoff
security.
game. Yeah.
If they lose, I think there's going to be talks. There might be some rumors. They might consider it. But with the way that they won the division. Isn't much to say because they had the Eagles and they were going to win the division. Anyway, so to see make it to playoffs anyway, I mean that's McCarthy's way of saying like, hey, I can still coach. I can still take this team to playoffs. So I do think he has one more year left. I don't think they'll fire him after if they lose against the Bucs. I think they're going to give him a chance. I'd say 40-60 that he'll get fired.
I don't know. I think it depends on Sean Payton. I think if Payton says, hey, I'll do this, and McCarthy loses, so Legit Football, we put out in the preseason, it was based on an ESPN article, top 5 coaches on the hot seat. Kingsbury, gone. Rule, gone. Reich, gone. Stefanski somehow turned it around, but he had a pretty bad year, even without the Deshaun stuff. And McCarthy. Those were the 5 coaches that were listed back in August. So to me, that's still fresh. I still think that he is on the hot seat. And if they lose, you said 3 games, Anthony, since 2000. If they lose again, I don't know that Jerry's going to be that patient, especially if he has a guy like Sean Payton waiting in the wings. I'm going to say 60-40. He is fired. I'm not saying 90-10, but I'm going to lean on the other side of it. What about Brandon Staley, guys?
This is so interesting to me. If they win on Saturday, if they win this weekend, because he's another coach, I think they have to fire him. They have to move on. But if they win, is it just enough to keep him? I don't know. Like that. As a Chiefs fan and wanting to see the Chargers suffer forever, I almost hope they do. But then there's the other part of me that's like, oh, that's a divisional game to go to the AFC Championship game, and I'm not sure I want to play the Chargers a third time.
Yeah, you guys would play Chargers next round, assuming the Bills win, which they will. It'd be 5 versus 1.
Yep. And yeah, I would definitely rather play the Jaguars in that matchup, even though I think the Jaguars are a better team. The Chargers and us always play close. But anyways, if they win, I think there's a chance that he could stick around. I think if they lose, there's a 0% chance he's still there. And I think that's the right call for them.
I think with losing Mike Williams, that kind of made his seat a little hotter. And that's just
and that was his fault.
It was
his fault.
Yes,
exactly,
and it should be. Yes.
And it should be. Why are you doing? You want to start them off? Fine. You want to play a quarter just so they keep the momentum? Fine. But you kept them in a game that was meaningless, and a game you were losing, and you didn't win. Like there was no benefit to that. So pointless.
Yeah. I think his seat's red hot now, and they need to make it to the championship if he wants his job. That's what I'm going to leave it at. Championship or none. It's how I see it there. You have one of the greatest generational talents in Justin Herbert, and win as many games as you were hired to. Like you have this talent team. Brian, you've been saying that it's top 3 roster, and you're coaching this top 3 roster, and you're not winning games as you should. I think that he is going to be gone next year because they're going to find a coach that will be able to utilize that top 3 roster.
Yeah, maybe it is Peyton as well. I've been saying they were my pick in the preseason to go to the AFC Championship game because of how good their roster was. The fact that they made it to the playoffs, but it wasn't easy. And there was a lot of questionable decisions. Throwing Justin Herbert out there with broken ribs, that was the last time these two teams played, was right after he had that rib injury. They got destroyed. Like, Staley's decision-making, you can say the fourth down stuff too, is super questionable. Lombardi has been a very vanilla play caller. They've won their games because of their exceptional talent, and now one of their best players, Mike Williams, is not playing in this game. To me, you need a new coach. I'm going to say also maybe 75-25 that Staley is fired if they lose this game. Last thing I'll say, with regards to coaches, just looking at these matchups, I didn't have notes on this. A number of these teams, either first year head coach overall, or first year with that team. You got Jacksonville, Peterson's first year with the Jags in the playoffs. Mike McDaniel, Dolphins' first year head coach period, makes the playoffs. By the way, I'm putting this on the record. I don't think I've mentioned this on a podcast yet. If somehow Stephen Ross fires Mike McDaniels, I don't think I'm a Dolphins fan anymore. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah,
just putting it on record. I would be absolutely
break my
done.
heart. I think he has made that. Man, the change in locker rooms that certain coaches make, and same thing on the with the Jaguars, same deal, man. Like, they have made those organizations so much better, and if they move on from McDaniel, that is crazy to me.
After the Flores mess, and I think McDaniel's been better than Flores, but I thought Flores was a good coach too, and didn't agree with how that went down. So I just want to put that out there, So I have to be held accountable to it.
After Dan Campbell, he's probably my favorite coach because he's because he's I want to say like a football nerd. He knows the game. He knows he writes these routes like it's math, and the way he calls plays, the way that he runs this team is just incredible. I haven't seen it in a very long time. Mike McDaniel needs to stay in Miami if they want to succeed as a franchise. That's how I see it.
But to me too, like, you have to think about it. Like, if Tua wouldn't have been out with 100 concussions this year, they would have been so much better. I mean, this wouldn't even be remotely a conversation.
Right.
I mean, you would have a Dolphins team that would have clinched the playoffs like 4 weeks ago. And it's just a freak deal. If you lose your starting quarterback for a good chunk of the season, that's just part of it, and it would be a shame to see that fall apart just because of mismanagement in front office. So.
I'm starting to see Brady to the Dolphins things again. I don't know how I feel about that.
No.
So we're not going to talk about that right now. We'll revisit that if and when it happens. But a couple more mentions. Minnesota versus Giants. 2 first-time head coaches. You got Kevin O'Connell on the Vikings side, Brian Dable, longtime assistant but first-time head coach on the Giants side. And then Todd Bowles, first time as head coach with the Bucs. So you have previously coached the Jets, but first year, granted it was 8-9, and they got in because their division was awful. But there you go. So I just thought that was an interesting nugget. We've done it, guys. The Legit Football Podcast. By the way, if you're a subscriber, we used to do this, both myself and then Anthony. The Legit Football Podcast was just like a 10-minute rundown of the newsletter. Surprise, we rebranded it. It's different. It's better. It's longer. Hopefully you guys are okay with that. Definitely make sure if you're just listening to watch the YouTube version, because there's a lot of awesome nuggets that I didn't get a chance to say. Just scrolling across the bottom. 2022-2017, only 2 seasons since 77-78, where 3 teams at 100-1 odds or longer to win the Super Bowl all made the playoffs. Look at this. Anthony he went above and beyond. This year it was Seattle, New York, and Jacksonville. So make sure to watch the video on YouTube. We'll make sure to have it up later today. We're recording this at about 1 o'clock Pacific, so 4 o'clock Eastern. It will be worth your time. But yeah, we're going to be doing this twice a week. I think we might record next Tuesday just because there's a Monday night game, but we're recapping the playoffs and previewing the playoffs all the way through the Super Bowl, and then we'll have twice a week some really cool football discussions in the offseason. Jeff, absolute pleasure always having you on. I'll talk football with you any day and every day. Any last words as we wrap up and head into Super Wildcard Weekend?
Nope. I'm just excited for this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun.
No stress on you. No Chiefs game. You just get to enjoy it.
I know, it's great. I just get to watch something's going to not go the way we expect. I almost can guarantee it, be an upset or a game being far less close than we anticipated. And that's what makes football fun. So we'll see what crazy things happen this weekend. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Jeff, I have a question for you before we end it. As a Chiefs fan, who is the team that you are more terrified to play? Who do you not want to play in the playoffs?
Yo, the Bengals have our number. Now, the Bills are a very good team, but we've like branded ourselves as the underdog against the Bengals when we played them this season, and they
Didn't
spanked
work.
us.
Still doesn't matter. Yeah.
So, like man, they have our number, and if I'm gonna pick a team that I would rather not play, it would definitely be the Bengals. So
Okay.
Go Ravens, I guess.
All right, last thing we're going to do before we wrap up is I want to go ahead and make Super Bowl predictions now since the playoffs have not started. Let's do it. We're going to hold you to it. Anthony, we'll start with you. Who makes the Super Bowl from the NFC and AFC?
From the AFC, I think the Buffalo Bills finally do it. They finally win the championship in double overtime. And I think that they're going to play the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be healthy, and he's going to be on top of it. A.J. Brown is going to be out there. They have a crazy offensive line. Their defense is incredible. I think an Eagles and Bills Super Bowl. I'm calling it right now. Oh, and the Bills are going to win.
Jeff?
I could see, man, there's 3 very good teams.
No, I can see. Make your prediction.
I will make a prediction. Oh, you're going to put me on the spot.
You know I do.
Oh, man. Bills are going to make the Super Bowl. I'll agree with that. And I will flip a coin on a 49ers-Eagles game. I'll just be contrary. I'll go 49ers, somehow sneak past it's just a fluke game against the Eagles. I mean, 49ers are a very good team, so it's not a fluke game. But I think the 49ers, we don't have to get into it. We're not picking NFC championship games that don't exist. And yeah, in that matchup, I think the Bills win.
So I am also going the Bills. They were my preseason pick to win it all, so I have to stay with them. I had them over the Rams in the preseason. That didn't
That's probably
work
not
out.
going to happen.
That is definitely not going to happen. Going out on a limb there, Jeff. But I will. I mean, obviously, it's Niners or Eagles. It has to be. Sure, the Cowboys have the talent, but I just don't believe in them. We already said the Giants and the Vikings aren't options. I think it's Philly. I think it comes as great as Purdy has been, and I know there's a lot of 49ers people who listen to my stuff. I just think that top to bottom, that roster is better, assuming Jalen Hurts is fully healthy when they play. I'm going to have to go him over Purdy. You go with the quarterback when all other things are equal. I think this Eagles team is on a tear. I do think the Bills win. Damar Hamlin, finally Buffalo getting over. I mean, this is the Bills' year, so I'm going to stick with that. Anthony Wehner, thanks for producing an amazing podcast with all the nuggets, doing what you do. We will work on this show even more. We're going to add some sound effects. We're going to add some segments, especially after the playoffs are done. Jeff knows that we used to run a podcast called the Pigskin Party Podcast. We had a lot of fun on there. We're going to try to make this a little bit more like that. And once again, if you're a 30 Minutes football fan, we will still keep that going as well. Jeff Schiesser, thanks for coming on. Make sure to check out The Year We Started a Podcast. Friendly podcast between him and an old friend of his where they go deep on a lot of topics. Really, really funny. Never miss an episode. And make sure to stay tuned. We'll be doing this all off season and definitely for the rest of the playoffs. Thanks, guys. This has been the Legit Football Podcast. We'll see you next week.